Okay, today we're going to take a look at the quadratic formula and the quadratic equation. The quadratic formula is used to solve the quadratic equation. You take these coefficients here, A, B, and C, and you substitute them into the quadratic formula. And what it tells you is it tells you, like, if I've got a quadratic curve, something like that, just a minute, and these two places would be where the quadratic equation or the curve equals 0, and that will be where it crosses the x-axis. Those two places, that place right there and that place right there. And I can find those two places by taking these coefficients a, b, and c and plugging them into this quadratic formula. Let's take an example. Suppose I had 3x squared plus 5x minus 4, and I want to know, where does that equal 0? Okay, so A obviously equals 3, B obviously equals 5, and C equals -4. Now, there's some places where people make a lot of mistakes on the quadratic formula. This is a pretty easy one, so it should go pretty well. Why don't you take these three numbers and plug them in here and see what you get? You should get two answers. Well, just get started on it, and then I'll come back and we'll take a look at it. Okay, now you should have had something like this. -5 plus or minus and so forth, square root of all of that. Now, be careful when you do this, because the negative times the negative is going to be positive. Okay, go ahead and try simplifying that. Do you get -5 plus or minus square root of 73 all over 6? See, this is 25. 4 times 3 is 12. 12 times 4 is 48, but a negative makes it positive 48. And 25 plus 48 is 73. Then, in order to work this a little bit easier, not get confused, I'll split the plus and the minus up. So I've got -5 plus square root of 73, all divided by 6, and I've got -5 minus square root of 73, all divided by 6. Or really, the better way to do it right now would be to use your calculator and go parentheses -5 plus square root of 73 divided by 6, and you could go -5 under parentheses or inside parentheses minus square root of 73 divided by, this should be a divided by 6. Now you can do it either way. If you do it like this, just go -5 plus square root of 73, then hit your execute button or your equal button, and then divide by 6. Here's what I mean. -5 plus square root of 73, then hit your equals button, and then divide by 6, and you should get your answer. What do you get? And there's our two answers. See, on this case here, I'm just taking -5 plus square root of 73, then I'm hitting my equal sign or my EXE button, whichever. Then I'm going to divide that answer that's in my window by 6, and I get that. You can do the same thing here. Now, another way to do it would have been to take and make a parentheses like this, parentheses -5 plus square root of 73, parentheses divide by 6, and you should get exactly the same answer here. Okay, you try this one. I'll be quiet, and you try 6x squared plus 5x minus 6 equals 0. Take the A, B, and C, substitute it into the quadratic formula, and see what you get. And I'll come back with the answers. And see, that should be what you get right there. 0.8 and -1.8. Okay, so far it should be pretty easy. Now let's take another one and let's work this one. And I'll let you get a head start on it while I'm erasing stuff. And try 3x squared minus 4x plus 3 equals 0. This is going to cause you a little bit of problem. B equals negative 4. C equals 3. A equals 3. Okay, so you should be somewhere along here where the negative 4, B's negative 4, so then if we had a negative B, we're going to have a negative 4, which means it's positive 4 in front. And similarly, anybody who gets negative 16 right here is doing it slightly wrong because negative 4 should be in parentheses. Negative 4 squared will be 16. And then here we got minus 4 times 3 is 12, times 3 is 36, minus 36. Now, at this point, you're probably seeing a problem. 16 minus 36 is square root of negative 20 here. I've got a negative 20. And your calculator should say error when you plug that in. Or maybe it'll say not real or non-real answer or something like that. You see, I can't take the square root of a negative number. So there is no answer to this problem because this quadratic equation right here is an equation that I don't know exactly where it is, but it goes above the x-axis. There's no place where it crosses the x-axis, so there's no solution. What about something like this, where we had one solution? Is this possible? Can I use the quadratic formula to give me that one point? Well, you can try that with this problem right here. X squared minus 6x plus 9 equals 0. Take your A is 1. Your B is a negative 6. And your C is 9. Plug those in, see what you get. So when you plug it in here we get not negative 36. Negative 6 times negative 6 is positive 36. And then I'm going to subtract 36, so that gives me a 0 right here. Square root of 0 is still 0, so 6 divided by 2 is 3. And there's one answer, 3. So over here on the x-axis, 1, 2, 3, and my quadratic graph is going up from there and touches the x-axis at 3. Finally, some of you are wondering, how can I take the quadratic formula and put it into my calculator all at once? Is it possible to do that? Well, yes, you can. One thing you need to realize is that, well, that the parentheses are going to help you a great deal. So if I go like this, negative b plus or minus, and there's going to be a problem there because your calculator is not going to do your plus or minus. Square root of, well, now wait, that's not going to, because the calculator doesn't go all the way over the square root, does it? So we'll go just right here like your calculator does. And then all of this has to be figured out. And I'm going to need to make sure the b's in parentheses in case it's negative, and I put it in like that. Minus 4 times a times c. And then all of that inside has to be done. This whole thing has to be done over, and then 2a has to be done together. Something like that. So if I had 3x squared minus 7x plus 1 equals 0, then I would go negative 7 plus or minus square root of negative 7 squared minus 4 times 3 times negative 7, and all of that's in. And then I've got one more back here, and I'm going to divide by 2a, like that. And then I have to get rid of that minus and then do the whole thing down here again. And I'll just let you do it. Square root and so forth, etc. Oops, wrong way to spell that. Etc. Okay, then tomorrow we'll look at, or the next video we'll look at using PEMDAS or reversing the PEMDAS and reversing the PEMDAS with inverse operations to solve equations. Not evaluate formulas, but actually solve equations. That's what we'll look at next time. See you later.